It's almost midnight. You are lying in bed. The room is dark. Your thumb is already moving toward the one bright rectangle in the room. You didn't plan to buy anything tonight, but in the next 90 seconds you probably will. You'll tell yourself it's small, a $10 impulse, a subscription you forgot to cancel and now, strangely, don't want to. Tomorrow morning you'll look at it and wonder what you were thinking. The obvious explanation is that you simply lack self-control, but the real answer is far stranger than that. Something happens to your brain after dark that makes you, in a very real and measurable sense, a different person than the one who woke up this morning. Let's start with what your brain is actually made of by the time midnight arrives. Not metaphorically, literally. In 1998, a psychologist named Roy Baumeister ran an experiment that changed how scientists think about willpower forever. He put people in a room with a plate of fresh-baked cookies and a bowl of radishes. Half the group was told they could eat the cookies. The other half was told they had to eat only radishes, while the cookies sat right in front of them, smelling like heaven. Afterward, both groups were given a frustrating puzzle to solve. The radish eaters, the ones who had just spent their willpower resisting cookies, gave up on the puzzle almost twice as fast. Baumeister called this ego depletion. Self-control, it turns out, isn't a character trait. It behaves more like a muscle. Every choice you make during the day, what to wear, what to say in a meeting, whether to snap at your coworker, draws from the same limited tank. And that tank does not refill itself by dinner time. By the time you're lying in bed at midnight, you have made thousands of tiny decisions since sunrise. The part of your brain responsible for saying no, your prefrontal cortex, has been running on fumes for hours. It is, quite literally, one of the most metabolically expensive pieces of tissue in your entire body, and it has almost nothing left to give. So who is making the decision instead? That's where it gets interesting. Because while your prefrontal cortex is going dark, another part of your brain is just waking up. Your body runs on a chemical clock called cortisol, the hormone most people only associate with stress. In a healthy pattern, cortisol should be dropping steadily by the time you're in bed. But in 2014, researchers studying financial anxiety found something unsettling. In people who worry about money, cortisol doesn't fall in the evening the way it should. It rises. Right when your ability to resist temptation is at its lowest, your stress chemistry is doing the opposite of what it's supposed to do. Why would your body do that to you? Because your brain wasn't built for bank apps and one-click checkouts. It was built for a much older kind of night. For most of human history, nightfall meant danger, not shopping. Darkness was when predators moved and when threats were hardest to see. Evolution didn't need you to be a careful, deliberate thinker at night. It needed you to react instantly, without hesitation, the moment something in the shadows demanded a decision. Slow, thoughtful reasoning could get you killed at 2 a.m. on the savannah. Fast, emotional, gut-level response kept you alive. That ancient wiring never got the memo that the danger disappeared. It just got repointed. Now, instead of a sound in the dark, the trigger is a notification. Instead of a predator, it's a countdown timer that says the sale ends in 10 minutes. Your nervous system still responds the same way it always has. Fast, emotional, now, not later. And waiting for it, on the other end of every single one of those notifications, is a chemical that has nothing to do with pleasure at all. In the early 1990s, a neuroscientist named Wolfram Schultz was recording individual neurons in the brains of monkeys while they waited for rewards. What he discovered reshaped an entire field. Dopamine, the molecule everyone calls the pleasure chemical, doesn't actually spike when you get something good. It spikes when you don't know if you're going to get it. It's not about the reward. It's about the uncertainty right before the reward. That single discovery explains almost everything about why shopping apps, betting apps, and social media all look the way they do. A flash sale isn't designed to make you feel good about buying something. It's designed to make your brain light up in the seconds before you decide, when the outcome still feels uncertain, when there's a chance you might miss out. Your dopamine system doesn't care whether you actually need the thing. It only cares that not knowing feels almost unbearable. At 3 in the afternoon, with a full tank of willpower, you might scroll past that notification without a second thought. At midnight, with your prefrontal cortex depleted and your cortisol rising instead of falling, that same notification lands directly on undefended territory. But there's one more piece to this, and it might be the most important one. In 2013, An economist named Sendhil Mullainathan and a psychologist named Eldar Shafir published a study that measured something nobody had properly measured before: what financial stress actually does to raw thinking ability. They tested farmers before and after harvest, when money was tight versus when it wasn't. The same farmers, tested on the exact same cognitive tasks, scored significantly worse when money was scarce. The researchers calculated the effect at roughly 13 IQ points, comparable to losing an entire night of sleep. Worrying about money doesn't just make you anxious. It actively consumes the mental bandwidth you would otherwise use to make good decisions about money. It's a trap that closes in on itself. The less financial security you feel, the less cognitive capacity you have to protect that security, and the more vulnerable you become to exactly the kind of impulsive spending that makes things worse. Now stack all three of these findings on top of each other, and something clicks into place. By midnight, your self-control has been spent down to almost nothing, thanks to 100 small decisions since morning. Your stress hormones, if you're already anxious about money, are doing the opposite of what they should, climbing instead of falling. Your dopamine system is primed to respond most powerfully not to things you want, but to the uncertainty of things you might lose. And if money has been tight lately, your entire cognitive bandwidth for weighing consequences has already been quietly taxed away. You were never simply bad with money. You were a fully functioning human nervous system, operating exactly as evolution built it, dropped into an environment engineered by people who have read the same research you just heard and used it to build machines that profit from it. There's a strange kind of relief in that, and also a warning, because once you know your brain has a weak point, you also know when the weak point opens. Researchers who study neuroeconomics, including Knutson at Stanford, have shown that the brain's reward center, a small region called the nucleus accumbens, lights up before a purchase decision even more predictably than logic would suggest it should. That surge happens fastest under exactly the conditions you're in right now at midnight. Tired, alone, unmonitored, in the dark. You cannot out-willpower a hormone. You cannot argue your way past a neuron that fires faster than conscious thought. But you can do what every species before you eventually learned to do with dangers it couldn't outrun. You can avoid the terrain where the danger lives. That might mean your card details are never saved in the apps that tempt you most. That might mean notifications go silent after 9 at night before the tank is empty, not after. That might mean the phone sleeps in another room, the way your ancestors kept the fire far enough from the tree line to see anything moving in the dark, but not so close that they stopped being careful. None of this is about discipline. It never was. It's about understanding that the version of you making decisions at midnight is running on a different chemical setup than the version of you who will wake up regretting them. It's almost midnight again, some other night. You are lying in bed. The room is dark, and this time your phone is already in the kitchen, out of reach, exactly where you left it on purpose. Your thumb reaches for nothing, and for once the decision was never yours to make in the first place. It was already made hours earlier by the version of you who understood the dark.